Yo, what's happening? This is your boy Milo, and today I've got another tutorial for you on structure. You're going to learn how to structure a trap beat from beginning to end, or any kind of hip-hop beat, really. So I've got my channel rack here. This is a trap whistle, and you know, basically I've just got a couple of different instruments here, a trap horn. What's up next? This is a synth. Now, I've got a couple of different sounds here. I've gone and sort of basically pre-selected all of these sounds so I didn't fuck around too much, you know, trying to find sounds and stuff throughout this tutorial. What I really want to teach you is how to construct a trap beat and the fundamentals as they you know, appear to me in my idea of the fundamentals of a trap beat. So you just heard the 808, I've got the kick, I've got the snare, hi-hat, another hi-hat. And all of these items are going to be used throughout this beat. Oops, that's the generic fucking FL Studio snare. Let's delete that. So first thing I'm doing is I'm going ahead and I'm just laying down the first part of the beat. Now, I've got the hi-hat tapping down on each of the fourth notes there. And like, you know, I'm going ahead and laying my kicks. The reason I put the snares and the hi-hats there first is because they basically don't ever change. It's just the rhythm of your kicks that'll really change. You're gonna, you know, you're gonna throw down a couple different snares here and there and all the rest of it, but look, this is how you construct a basic rhythm beat, right? So that's the basic pattern that I've started with. I'm gonna go ahead and throw down the bass notes now, and what I'm doing is I'm just clicking on the step sequence of where I want my bass notes to be. They're going to basically follow the kicks, not every single kick, because I don't want to have the 808 pumping at machine gun frequencies. You know, I just want it to be rolling along there with the kick most of the hits, but there's some fast kick hits in there to shuffle up the rhythm, which the bass notes don't follow. Now, I've gone into the piano roll of the 808, and I've just thrown another note in there to bring some basic form of melody to this beat. So what we're trying to do here is we're starting with the first pattern of our beat, and what we're going to do is we're going to continue to build on this pattern until this first pattern that we've got here, the first and only pattern, the first and the only pattern. What we're going to do is you know, we're going to build this up to its maximum point. So what this pattern is going to turn into is basically the chorus or the hook or the most busy part of the beat with the most layers. Now, trap beats and any kind of music really is about building up and breaking down layers. It's all about, you know, especially in EDM, you know, you got to build up to a drop, and then you got to drop something heavy. You've got to change rhythm, you've got to introduce layers. So now what I'm doing is I'm basically putting down a basic melody, and I'm going to build from this melody to create a beat here. Like I said, the goal of this first pattern is to become the busiest pattern of all of your patterns. It's the crescendo of your song. What we're going to do once this pattern is fully built up, when this pattern is complete and it's at its maximum volume, is we're going to tear it all down. How we achieve the maximum volume is to fill out the frequency spectrum with our layers, with our different instruments. So with each of our different instruments, we're attempting to give it its own place in the frequency spectrum. So I've gone ahead and made a melody with the lead synth, and I'm going ahead to choose a different pad. This is basically a background pad. The other instruments so far have been foreground instruments, right? The bass is a foreground instrument, the kick is a foreground instrument. They both drive so much rhythm. So now I've just gone ahead and introduced a background pad. You can do it with any kind of synth or pad, you know, just something to drone along in the background to fill out a bit of space. It's not too up front. It's not really distracting from the rest of the beat. It doesn't provide a melody. It just fills up space. It fills up the nothingness, you know, gives it a more full sound to brings a more full sound to your beat. So, like I said, we want to ramp up this pattern. We want to ramp this pattern up to the busiest, most loudest part of the beat. That's what we want this pattern to be. So I've just introduced more rhythm into the hi-hats, so it's a bit more aggressive, more tension. Introduced some crashes to accent the notes. The horn stabs are being accented by the crashes. So right now we've got the layer of the horns, we've got the background synth, and we've got the bass. We've also got the foreground synth, the main synth. Now what I'm doing here is just introducing some chops to the hi-hats, the rattling hi-hats that are classic in trap music. I'm just slicing up some of the notes and the rhythm, and I've zoomed in on the piano roll here. And you know, you can make small accentuations to your percussion by using the piano roll. And here I'm just playing with the panning of the hi-hat. So if you're wearing headphones or you're close to your speakers, you'll hear the hi-hats pan from left to right, right to left as they're rattling along. I'm also going to change the pitch of the hi-hats in the rattles, just to bring some life to the beat. So this is starting to sound pretty busy, but you know, we can do more. This is going to be the busiest part of the beat. This is the climax of the beat, right? So I'm going to introduce another hi-hat layer, the open hi-hat. Open hi-hat's going on the off beat, every other beat. So we get that bounce, bounce. And that's, you know, a new rhythmic element for the beat. So that looks like it, that's the loudest part of the beat. That's pretty much the maximum right there. So I've just put that pattern to the side, I've put my climax pattern to the side, and I've come back, made a clone of that pattern, and now I'm going to tear it down, because I'm going to go straight to the intro now. So when I'm starting a beat, I go straight for the climax, and then I break that climax down and bring it straight back to the intro. So I'm wiping away a bunch of layers. I'm gonna make the rhythms really simple here. It's not so much like, not so much syncopation. There's not as much, it's not as busy, right? We're gonna tone it down. This is the intro. So we've brought the hi-hats back to a very simple rhythm. I think I'm gonna go ahead and delete those hi-hats in a second. I might be wrong, but you know, I'm scaling back the kicks. I'm making them less aggressive. This is the intro now. This is our intro pattern. We need to introduce these layers and cycle through these layers to keep our beat interesting. So in the beginning, we don't have a lot of layers. There's not a lot of busyness. There's not a lot of busyness, and you know. So I've got my busy pattern, the climax of the beat off to the side, to the right there, and I'm starting on my intro to the left. Now I want to bridge the gap. I've got my very basic and torn down intro. I want to bridge the gap between the intro and the drop, the climax. So I'm building. Now I'm building the build-up. I guess this is the pre-chorus or the pre-hook. And as you can see, I've just subtracted a couple of layers this time from the climax. What I've done is I've removed the horn stabs. I've also removed the bouncing open hi-hat, because remember, we're building the bridge between the intro, which is very quiet, and the chorus, which is very loud. So now what I want to do is introduce a new element to the beat at the bridge. At the bridge of the chorus and the intro, I'm introducing a new instrument. This is just to add more suspense to the beat and to introduce a new dynamic to the beat. It's a new instrument, it's a new sound. And all I've done to make that additional layer is using one of my instruments that I had pre-selected. I copied my main synth, the main melody, and just pasted it into the new instrument. So I've got two layers following each other. You can hear them now. I've got the trap whistle and the main synth. So you can hear that there is a slight build-up between the introduction and the crescendo. By introducing that new layer in the bridge between the intro and the crescendo, you know, we keep the listener interested. It brings dynamic to the beat. makes it more exciting, adds some suspense, because people are like, what's coming next, you know? I've just adjusted the pitch of the whistle. So now what I'm doing is I'm altering the climax to make it even more climactic, because I realized that with the introduction of the trap whistle that I need to do something more in the chorus to make it even more powerful than the bridge that comes before it. So I'm going to introduce the trap whistle to the crescendo. I'm also going to alter the pitch from bar to bar. So it's going to have, like, you'll hear now, a high-pitched section and a low-pitched section. You'll notice the whistle here is a little higher than it was before. This is the high whistle part. I've also altered the pitch of the main synth, so that makes my crescendo more dynamic and has a change, brings a change to the crescendo. Now what I've done is I've just used the intro as the verse section, or the half of the verse, because what we need to do is we need to cycle between low layer, like we need to cycle between parts that we need to cycle between patterns that are thin in terms of how many layers they have, and parts that are thick in terms of how many layers that they have. It's all about build up and breakdown and dynamics of the layers in your song. This is how you structure a trap beat, man. You feel me? So I've just used my intro as the verse, then I've got like the pre-chorus which has come in here. And I'm gonna go ahead and bring the bridge across now. Basically what I'm doing here is copy pasting my entire bridge and chorus section, because it's a trap beat. It's not really going to change that much. So you can see that just by building up and breaking down the layers and cycling between our instruments, that we're structuring a trap beat automatically. This is just how it's done. At least this is one way that it's done. It's not the only way. So we've just gone the intro slash verse into like a post verse section, a second verse section, which goes straight into our bridge to the chorus. This is the bridge that we made earlier with the trap whistle. You can hear that the pitch is adjusting between the first bar and the second bar. And we're back to our chorus again. This is our chorus part. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy, I'm going to copy the whole verse, the whole bridge, the whole chorus, and paste it again. So now, all I'm doing here is I'm just introducing, this is an automation clip. It just controls the volume, the master volume of the whole beat. This is just, all I'm doing is fading in and fading out the beat, that's it. At the beginning and at the end, just to use it as a bit of an intro, outro. It just, rolls in and then it rolls out. Now right before the drop, right before the big chorus, I've just added a riser. The riser just, brings more suspense to the drop. It's a build-up. So again, here's our intro, very bare. We've got a very basic kick rhythm, which is just like a basic form of what it will later become. Very basic hat rhythm, only 2 layers. Then like the first drop in the bridge, which introduced a new layer, which is in the trap whistle. Now the second drop, which is the main drop here. this would be our chorus. Our main drop here is a chorus. Now we're going to bring it back to the intro, which doubles as our first verse. Notice that it's much more basic than the crescendo. Much more basic rhythms. The hi-hat is very basic. The kick is very basic. We've withdrawn the bass. Now the second half of the verse, introduce the bouncy hi-hat because we're building up to something more here. Keep the listener entertained as well, new elements. Now we bring the bass back. This is like the pre-chorus or maybe like the later part of the verse or something. Now notice that we're cycling between the layers. Now here's our build-up, pre-chorus to chorus. Now remember, we basically began our beat with this section. This is the first section we started with. Most of the time I'm starting with the crescendo and I'm tearing down the layers and working back. So first I build myself what I know will be the crescendo by selecting my instruments and selecting my percussion. I go ahead and lay down the first pattern, build up that pattern as much as I can. Once it's at its maximum sort of peak, or where I think it should be, I go ahead and I tear it down. And you can hear just by tearing it down, bring it very basic, and then slowly building up back to the crescendo, like bridging the gap, that it automatically structures a basic trap beat for you. But like, I want to emphasize that it's not just trap beats that are built this way. Like a lot of music is about shuffling and cycling layers, especially in hip hop, EDM, all that kind of stuff. There you go. So I mean, look, it's as simple as that, which is easy to say, but I mean, you know, if you keep practicing, if you keep making beats, you'll get the hang of it. Something that I notice that, you know, so many producers have trouble with is structuring their beats. I see it in forums and I see like posted in places frequently. You know, how do I structure my beat? I can only make one pattern. I don't know where to go from there. Hopefully this can show you where to go after you've made your first pattern, because I know that's something that a lot of new producers do. They sit down, they just build up that step sequencer and they keep, you know, making a bigger and bigger pattern, and they're like, oh wow, this is great, but then they just don't know what to do. Now this is just a very basic way that you can go and structure your song from your first pattern, and how you can build up, break down and shuffle those layers, the layers of your instruments, the layers to the rhythm, how intricate your rhythm is, by you know, first building your most loud and busy pattern. You can then go ahead and tear that down, make it basic again, and from there, once you've bridged the gap between what will be your intro or your low point to the highest point, just by bridging the gap in between and introducing the layers one by one and cycling between pairs of layers, or you know, cycling between pairs of layers and changing the dynamics of the song, your trap beat is going to be automatically sort of structured for you. So yeah, look, this is just one way that you can make a trap beat. I hope you learned something from this, and make sure that if you enjoyed what you saw today, hit subscribe, drop a comment, like the video, check out my SoundCloud, check out all my shit on YouTube. You know, like I've got hundreds of songs on YouTube, I've got heaps of videos on a bunch of different channels. You know, I'm everywhere, man. I'm trying to say that I'm everywhere, so go look me up, go follow my shit, go show me some love. Alright, peace. Talking that shit get dropped, ayy. Getting money around the clock, ayy. Milo made the bodies drop, ayy.